Let's go back to a time when video games were seen as little more than a fad, almost dead at one point. Sure, arcades were still cool, and the NES had breathed fresh air into home consoles, but there were no Azeroths, or Minecraft worlds, or insert fantasy game world here. The best adventure we had was playing as a single square in a world of gates that opened with dot-shaped keys and dragon seahorse things. Then, a man you may have heard of, Shigeru Miyamoto, recalled a time where he would journey outdoors, searching caves for treasure, where exploring the world was so exciting. The Legend of Zelda is probably the only NES game that could be called open world as we understand it today. You could go anywhere right away, do whatever you want, and there were secrets everywhere. To top it all off, it placed you in a world of magical fantasy, full of monsters, fairies, and dungeons to explore. And even a storyline that went slightly deeper than find and save the princess. There simply was nothing like it, and it went a long way towards guiding developers to creating the awesome worlds and games we enjoy today. As far as visuals go, the NES was pretty limited. The best NES games had to get really creative with their graphic design to help the player understand what was what. The Legend of Zelda was one of the best at creating one big, seamless world with distinct areas and clear differences between scenery, monsters, and items. It was clear when you were in a forest, mountains, desert, graveyards, and it was never too hard to tell what was going on at any time. It was a world that felt alive, dangerous, but altogether fascinating, and introduced us all to the delightfully unique fantasy world of Hyrule. While the dungeons all looked pretty much the same, the layout of each kept them feeling distinct. Later, NES titles like Mega Man did a better job of creating unique visual styles, but Zelda showed us all how to create a connected world that felt fresh and new with each area visited. The Legend of Zelda has been renowned for years for its sound design with each iteration. Chances are some folks recognize the treasure jingle, da-da-da-da, or the main theme, and have never played Zelda before. Both of these tunes originated from the original. It doesn't end there. The dungeon theme is spectacular, really creates a feeling of danger while enticing the player to explore deeper in. There's also the puzzle solved jingle, and each of these tunes continues to be updated and reused in Zelda games today. Every sound in the game creates a desire to keep adventuring, to find every secret, and helps it feel rewarding. It also builds on the fantasy world that was built for these games, and it just goes to show how sound design can influence the quality of games for years to come. The Legend of Zelda is iconic in every way. There's almost no other game before the N64 and PS1 era that could be described as an open world game like the ones we have today. It built a world that felt huge and made us wonder if there was an invisible wall or a hidden staircase on every wall or under every tree. It kept folks coming back to see what else they could find, journeying through dungeons to find the Triforce and save the princess. Even today, it can feel daunting to try to find every secret without a walkthrough. It also introduced battery saves, meaning we no longer had to binge play to beat it in a single afternoon, or keep a notebook full of passwords. Ugh. Quite frankly, it was the only game for years that could be set aside like a book, come back to later and picked up right where it was left off. The desire to leave no stone unturned, along with impeccable and unseen before gameplay, world, and sound design, gives this game a retro score of 10 out of 10. At this point, I'd like to consider what it might be like if The Legend of Zelda was released today. Retro is totally in, with everybody and their dog releasing an anniversary collection. Seriously, Sega, just stick with more Sonic Mania. However, even less good games are getting sequels or reboots. Bubsy! And that is not necessarily a good thing. The best comparison I have is a discussion I had with a coworker about Bloodstained, a throwback to old-school Castlevania, and literally, this was Castlevania without the license. He hated it for one reason. He could not change direction mid-jump. This seems trivial, as that design was intentional to invoke the feeling of playing on the NES, where such inputs were simply too much for the system. However, the game would likely have been a great nostalgia trip, even if we could move midair. Zelda suffers a similar fate, as even with excellent level design, great visuals, and wonderful sound direction, the controls are incredibly stiff by today's standards. For direction movement and only straight stabs, I need some sweeping slices. Controls like this would never pass scrutiny today, unless the word Souls is in the title. So, I'm giving The Legend of Zelda a modern score of 8 out of 10.